What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected actors walks into what should be a routine morning interview, only to realize, too late, that the host sitting across from him has other plans? It began like any other press appearance. Denzel Washington arrived on the set of the Tamron Hall show that Tuesday morning, expecting the usual. Some light conversation, a few laughs, and a chance to promote his new film. But within half a minute, the tone shifted from professional to personal, from friendly to confrontational. The cameras rolled. Tamron Hall smiled across the table, but behind her eyes was something sharp, rehearsed. "So, Denzel," she began, leaning forward, voice measured, "I have to ask you about something that's been on everyone's mind lately." Denzel tilted his head slightly, sensing the trap before it was even sprung. "What's that?" he asked. Tamron's smile tightened. "There've been rumors," she said. "People on set say you can be difficult, that you think you're better than everyone else." A hush fell across the studio. Even the camera crew froze. Denzel's expression didn't change, but the warmth drained from his eyes. "I don't know who's saying that," he replied evenly. "But I've been doing this for over 40 years. My record speaks for itself. I work hard, I show up prepared, and I treat everyone with respect." Tamron shuffled her cue cards theatrically. "Actually," she said, pretending to search for a page, "we've heard from sources on your last film. They claim you refused to speak to crew members, demanded your own private bathroom." "That's a lie," Denzel cut in, sharper now. "Whoever told you that is lying. I've never made those kinds of demands." The tension was palpable. The audience, usually chatty between takes, sat in stunned silence. Tamron, sensing the discomfort, didn't back down. Instead, she smirked. "Come on, Denzel. You don't have to play the saint. We all know how Hollywood works. Big stars think the rules don't apply to them." "I'm not pretending anything," he said, his voice steady but iron hard. "I came from nothing. I've worked for everything I have. I've never forgotten that." Tamron laughed, a cold, dismissive sound that seemed to echo through the studio. "Please, you've been living in your mansion in Beverly Hills for so long, you probably don't even remember what regular people look like." That was the moment everything changed. Denzel's polite expression vanished. He straightened, his shoulders squared, his gaze fixed directly on her. "Excuse me? You heard me?" Tamron said, leaning back smug. "When's the last time you talked to a normal person? Someone who wasn't paid to flatter you?" The control room erupted in whispers. The producers exchanged looks. This wasn't in the plan. This wasn't safe television anymore. "I talk to people every day," Denzel said, his tone now unmistakably firm. "My neighbors, fans on the street, folks at the grocery store. Don't sit there and tell me I live in some fantasy world." Tamron rolled her eyes. "Sure, Denzel. I'm sure you do your own shopping, pump your own gas, wait in line like everyone else." "As a matter of fact, I do." He shot back. "You don't know me, and you're way off base." Tamron smirked again, as if daring him to lose his composure. "Oh, come on. Stop pretending you're the everyman. You probably haven't touched a dollar bill in 20 years. That was it." Denzel stood slowly, every movement deliberate. His hands were clenched at his sides, his voice calm, but charged with quiet fury. "You know what?" he said, looking her straight in the eye. "I came here to talk about my work, something I care deeply about. But you don't want to talk about the work. You want to attack my character with lies." Tamron blinked, caught off guard but unwilling to yield. "I'm just asking the questions people want answers to," she said. "No," Denzel replied, his tone cutting through the air. "You're not asking questions. You're making accusations, and they're false. I don't know what your issue is with me, but I won't sit here and let you disrespect me on national television." The audience was dead silent now. Every camera, every crew member, every person in the studio could feel it, the moment before the storm breaks. Something irreversible had just happened. The camera operators froze, their hands trembling over the controls. No one knew where to aim. At Denzel's cold, unflinching stare, at Tamron's defiant glare, or at the stunned faces in the audience, who had just realized they were witnessing a meltdown in real time. Tamron's confidence faltered for a split second, but her pride wouldn't let her retreat. She leaned back with a smirk that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Oh, so now you're the victim," she sneered. "The poor, misunderstood movie star who just wants to be treated fairly." Denzel inhaled slowly through his nose, his composure hanging by a thread. When he spoke, his voice sliced through the silence like a blade. "You know what your problem is?" he said evenly. "You think because you've got a TV show, you can say anything you want about people, twist the truth, stir up controversy, all for ratings." Tamron's face turned crimson. No guest had ever dared talk to her like that. "I think," she snapped, "you need to sit back down and finish this interview like a professional." Denzel let out a short, humorless laugh. "Professional? You want to talk about professional?" He stepped closer, his presence towering over the room. "A professional host does their research. A professional host asks questions about the work, not rumors, not gossip, not whatever nonsense you dug up online. A professional doesn't ambush people with made-up stories." In the control room, the producer's headset crackled with chaos. "Cut to commercial!" someone hissed. "Do we cut?" "We can't. It's live." The tension was electric. Viewers at home were glued to their screens. The ratings were soaring. But this wasn't television anymore. It was a live implosion. Tamron's voice trembled as she pushed back. "Those stories aren't made up. I have sources, people who have worked with you, people who know what you're really like behind the scenes." "Name them," Denzel said, stepping forward. His voice was quiet, dangerous. "Go ahead. Name one." Tamron's fingers fumbled through her stack of papers. "You know I can't do that," she said finally. "It's Journalism 101. You protect your sources." Denzel shook his head slowly. "Journalism?" he repeated, disbelief dripping from the word. "This isn't journalism. This is a hit job. You came in here today ready to tear me down, and you don't even care if you have to lie to do it." The studio audience was transfixed. Some clutched their phones, recording every second. The air was thick, tense, dangerous. "I don't have to lie," Tamron shot back, her voice cracking slightly under pressure. "The truth about you is bad enough. You think you can just coast on your reputation forever? You think people don't see through your act?" "What act?" Denzel demanded, his tone rising. "What are you talking about?" "I've spent my life trying to make meaningful films, to tell stories that matter. I've never claimed to be perfect, but I've earned everything I have." Tamron stood now, squaring off against him. "Please," she scoffed. "You've been playing the same role for 30 years. The noble, dignified black man who can do no wrong. It's fake and everybody knows it." The words hit the room like an explosion. Gasps echoed from the audience. Crew members exchanged horrified looks. Even the producer dropped his headset in disbelief. Tamron had crossed a line, not just professionally, but personally. Denzel didn't move. His face went completely still. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, quiet enough that everyone had to strain to hear. "What did you just say to me?" Tamron's eyes darted away. She knew she'd gone too far, but it was too late to take it back. "You heard me," she muttered, trying to sound steady. "You've been playing a character your whole career, the perfect role model, but we all know that's not real." "You think my dignity is an act?" Denzel asked, his voice rising, steady but burning. "You think my integrity is fake? That everything I've built, every sacrifice, every step, is just some performance?" Nobody breathed, not a sound. "I think," Tamron said finally, "you're an actor who's very good at playing a part, and people deserve to know the real you." Denzel's voice thundered back. "The real me? You want to know the real me?" He stepped forward, every word landing like a hammer. "The real me grew up poor. The real me worked 3 jobs to pay for acting school. The real me's been married to the same woman for 40 years. Raised 4 kids I'm proud of. The real me has tried every day of my life to deserve the blessings I've been given. Tamron opened her mouth to cut him off, but Denzel wasn't finished. His voice filled the studio now, controlled, righteous, unstoppable. The real me volunteers at youth centers. The real me built a boys and girls club in my hometown. The real me funds scholarships, mentors young actors, shows up when the cameras aren't rolling. But you don't care about any of that, do you? Because that doesn't fit your story, Tamron scoffed, clinging to her last defense. Anyone can write a check, Denzel. That doesn't make you a good person. The crowd erupted in outrage. Boos echoed through the studio. Tamron's face paled as she realized the audience had turned on her. Denzel stood still, breathing hard, his voice lowering to something calm and lethal. "You're right," he said softly. "Writing a check doesn't make you a good person. But showing up does. Listening does. Giving your time when nobody's watching does." The silence that followed was absolute. Heavy. Reverent. Final. In that moment, everyone watching knew. The interview was over. But the fallout had only just begun. And I've been doing that for decades. Working, building, learning. While you've been sitting behind this desk, tearing people down. Tamron's producer was waving frantically from the control room, trying to get her attention, but she didn't even glance up. She was locked in now, too deep to back off. "So what are you saying?" she shot back. "That you're perfect? That you've never made a mistake? I'm saying I'm human." Denzel replied evenly. "I've made plenty of mistakes, but I learn. I try to do better. I don't claim to be perfect. I just try to be decent. And right now, you're making that very difficult." Maybe that's because decent people don't usually have to convince everyone how decent they are. Tamron sneered. That did it. Denzel calmly reached up, unclipped his mic, and set it down on her desk with deliberate care. The small thud it made echoed through the studio like a gunshot. "I'm done," he said simply. The microphone sat there between them like a challenge. Tamron stared at it, then looked back up, her defiance cracking under the weight of the moment. "You can't just walk away from this," she said, her voice tightening. "We're live on television. You have a contract. You have obligations." Denzel turned to face her fully. His voice was low, but every syllable carried weight. "My obligation was to show up and talk about my work in a respectful environment," he said. "You broke that the moment you turned this into a personal attack." The audience began clapping, hesitant at first, then louder. They were with him now, completely. But Tamron wasn't done. She was unraveling, desperate to claw back control of the show that was slipping through her fingers. "You know what I think?" she said, her voice rising. "I think you just can't handle being questioned. You're so used to everyone kissing up to you that you can't handle real journalism." "Real journalism." Denzel's voice boomed, sharp as lightning. "That's what you call this? Making up stories about me? Twisting words? Calling me out for things that never happened? That's not journalism. That's a witch hunt." "I'm asking the tough questions people are afraid to ask," Tamron snapped, her tone cracking. "Someone needs to hold you accountable." "Accountable for what?" Denzel shot back. "For working hard? For being successful? For trying to do the right thing? Tell me, Tamron, what exactly do you think I need to be held accountable for?" She faltered, searching for a new weapon. "For thinking you're better than everyone else. For being fake. For pretending to be something you're not." The crowd was restless now, shouting, booing, telling her to stop. The tension in the air was electric and dangerous. "You want to talk about fake?" Denzel said, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Fake is sitting behind that desk pretending to care about truth, while you profit off tearing people down. Fake is calling yourself a journalist, while you destroy reputations for ratings." "I am a journalist," Tamron said weakly. "I've been doing this for years." "Then start acting like one." Denzel replied. Ask me about my film. Ask about the message. Ask about the work. Ask about something that matters. Stop trying to turn it into a circus. She looked around helplessly. Her crew avoided eye contact. The audience's faces were cold, disappointed. Her guest was dismantling her live on air, and there was no way to recover. Fine, she said, forcing a brittle laugh. Let's talk about your movie. But don't act like you're some kind of victim. You came on my show. You agreed to this interview. I agreed to an interview, Denzel said firmly. Not an ambush. There's a difference, and you know it. In the control room, the producer was motioning wildly for her to end it, but Tamron couldn't let go. Her pride wouldn't let her. You know what your problem is, Denzel? She said, leaning forward. You can't stand that not everyone thinks you're as great as you think you are. I never said I was great, Denzel replied quietly. I said I try to be decent. I said I work hard. I said I treat people with respect. Those aren't grand claims. They're just basic human values. Tamron smirked bitterly. But you do think you're better than me, don't you? Denzel paused, studying her, not with anger, but with disappointment. When he spoke, his tone was soft but devastating. I don't think I'm better than you, he said. But I do think you're better than this. Or at least, I thought you were. The words landed like a hammer, and for a moment, even the cameras seemed to go silent. Tamron's face faltered for just an instant, the mask slipping. For that brief, fragile moment, it looked as though she understood the gravity of what she'd done. But the flash of remorse vanished as quickly as it appeared, replaced by a familiar anger. Don't you dare try to psychoanalyze me, she snapped, her voice trembling with indignation. You don't know anything about me. You're right, Denzel said softly, his tone measured but unyielding. I don't know you, but I know what I've seen here today. And what I've seen is someone more invested in tearing people down than lifting them up. Someone more interested in spectacle than truth. He turned to the audience, his presence commanding even in silence. You all came here expecting to talk about storytelling, about movies, about the craft, he said. But instead, you've watched a person try to destroy another human being's reputation. Not with facts, not with integrity, but with malice and rumor. The audience erupted into applause, thunderous, sustained, unanimous. The shift in the room was complete. Tamron's authority was gone. She looked around in panic, searching for support from her crew, her audience, anyone. But all she saw were blank, disappointed faces. This interview's over, Denzel declared, his voice steady and resolute. I came here in good faith, and I was met with bad intentions. I won't be part of it any longer. He turned and began walking toward the edge of the set, his movements calm and deliberate, a man reclaiming his dignity in front of millions. But Tamron couldn't stand to let the silence close in around her. Her pride, her fear, her desperation, they all collided at once. Go ahead and run, she shouted after him, her voice cracking. That's what people like you do when things get tough. You run back to your mansion, to your yes men, to the people who tell you how perfect you are. Denzel stopped mid-step. Slowly he turned around. The look in his eyes was not angry. It was final, cold, steady, and devastatingly clear. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, but carried through every inch of the studio like a verdict. The only person running from the truth here is you, he said. You ran from honest journalism. You ran from integrity. You ran from treating people with basic decency. And now, you're running from the consequences of what you chose to do. He held her gaze for one long, motionless beat, then turned and walked off the set. Tamron Hall sat frozen behind her desk, surrounded by the heavy silence of a room that no longer respected her. Every camera stayed on her, every second preserved. the moment a respected broadcaster publicly unraveled. And as the audience rose to their feet, applauding the man who had just left, it was clear to everyone in that studio what they had just witnessed. Not a scandal, not an interview gone wrong, but the quiet, irrefutable power of dignity standing up to cruelty.